Hello, and a very warm welcome to the fourth episode of the Feeling Good mini-series. My name is Serena. I use the pronouns she, her, and today I'm rejoined by Dr. Sheila Ross, who you may recognise from episode 1. In this podcast, we broadly talk about positive mental health skills, the attitudes towards them, and the barriers to developing them. We also talk about how we can possibly incorporate positive mental health skills into our daily lives. We intended to discuss a variety of skills, but actually ended up framing our whole conversation around one particular and vital skill, which is breathing. Sheila talks about the benefits of breathing and some of the science behind it, and we even incorporate a brief practice of breathwork, which I highly encourage you to follow along with. So here we go, episode 4. We hope you enjoy. Now, before we start our discussion, Sheila, could you please introduce yourself for those who haven't had the chance to listen to the first podcast that we did together? Please can you introduce yourself and give us a bit of your background?
Yeah, sure, Serena. Hi, it's lovely to be here again talking about these very important issues. So I'm Dr. Sheila Ross. I'm a psychologist, a health psychologist, and a psychotherapist. I have a background in health promotion. I developed the Feeling Good app along with Alistair Dobbin. I'm the CEO of Positive Rewards, a company that produces the app, and Alistair and I also started a charity, the Foundation for Positive Mental Health, where we work for that. And the charity is responsible for the schools program, which this series is for. So, okay, is that enough?
Yeah, thanks for your your introduction. I guess I have quite a broad question to start us off, which is, what comes to mind when you think of positive mental health skills?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. What comes to mind for me when I think of positive mental health skills is very much the breathing, along with the whole mind-body awareness, the ability that we have to notice how our body impacts how we feel. So for me, positive mental health is all about being aware of, in tune with our body, and particularly our breathing, because our breathing is the one thing that we can control. Most of our body systems are out with our control, but our breathing isn't. And that's what's so very neat about it.
Amazing. So how can that breathing and being attuned to the body, how does that lead to a positive mental health?
Yeah, well, several ways. On a very practical, physical level, when we are breathing more slowly, more calmly, the nervous systems that control our mood are much more in balance. And that's a balance between the sympathetic, which is our sort of fight or flight response, and our parasympathetic system, which is our rest and relax system. So they're much more in tune. And actually, slow, deep breathing will boost our parasympathetic activity. And that has a whole raft of benefits. It brings positive emotions, and positive emotions make us more outgoing. And they bring, positive emotions are happiness and joy. So it makes us more creative, more likely to problem solve. We can find solutions more easily. It just allows us to see things in a more positive light. So it's super, super helpful. So that's one of the things just about what breathing does physically, how it makes these physical changes in our body, which affect the whole balance of our mind, and therefore makes us more open-minded and open to experiences and more confident in ourselves. But also when we think about our breathing, it gives us something to hold on to internally, because it's something, as I said, we're in control of. Now, there's an awful lot of things out there in the world that we cannot control. And when we're out of control and we don't feel we have any sense of control, that makes us feel bad. You might have heard people talk about sort of loci of control. It's the sort of the center of control. So when we have a sense of being more in control, we feel a greater sense of autonomy. That's agency. That's the ability to make decisions for ourselves. And all of these are really important for our sense of well-being.
Yes, I remember you talking about autonomy in the first podcast that we did together, and how that's yeah,
It's good to
and
be consistent.
yeah, no, and how it's an attribute underpinning well-being. It's also very interesting, Sheila, as you're saying this, I'm actually noticing myself focus on my breath more, um, which is really interesting. Just like having that conversation, and yeah, it's good to know that it has a whole host of positive impact. You did touch on this in the earlier podcast as well, but I do think it's important to reiterate here, like, so what is really the importance of learning mental health skills like breathing and
Yes, another great question.
thanks.
It's a life skill, isn't it? It's life skills. It's about learning that we can look after our mental health. Because, as you say, we don't really notice our breathing, but actually, it doesn't take much for us to notice when it is brought to our attention. We can zoom in on it, and it can become more automatic that we notice it. Many people, when they're stressed, will, and then they begin to work with their breathing, will go, "Oh, I haven't breathed properly for years," you know. So it is so very, very core. It's something that we don't actually learn to do very often. For me, it was really when I was pregnant and preparing for childbirth. I hadn't really come across breath control before that. I think there is definitely more awareness now than there used to be, but it's so fundamental that it's really important. And I think the important message is that there's no magic. We can all learn to control our breathing, and it's something that gets easier as you practice, like learning to ride a bike, and then it becomes automatic, and you can click into that whenever you wish. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned how some people realize that they haven't, been able to breathe, for years, breathe properly for years. What are the barriers, do you think, to like learning these mental health skills, like breathing almost? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we well maybe yeah, that's a very good question. Well, one, we might not know about it. We
Mm.
might not know of the impact that breathing has. So if we don't know about it, then we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Like that awareness, that actual awareness
yeah,
of
that's
how
right.
positive it
So
is. Yeah.
just that sort of education,
Yeah.
actually, feelings are
Mm.
not just generated in the mind; they come from the body. It is the body telling the mind, attend to this.
Yeah.
If there's a feeling of joy, that's fine. Look where we are; it's great. If we're feeling stressed, it's our saying to our body is telling our mind, you're not in a safe position. You need to do something to help yourself.
Mm.
So, our body is telling our mind, our body is continually sampling the environment and sending signals through the vagus nerve to the brain to interpret. So the brain is interpreting what our body is doing. So if we don't really understand that link, then it's harder for us to really understand what the impact of using the body is and the benefit of breathing. So sometimes I think we're so in our emotions, we just think that's it, they're fixed, there's nothing I can do. I'm born with this, or I'll always be like that. We will overgeneralize. Yeah. So it's a very fixed mindset.
Right.
So we don't have the belief that we can change, or it's not that we can change. We don't have the belief that something so very, very simple can be so profoundly effective.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things is that we don't realize that something that's so simple like breathing can actually have such a profound effect on our feelings. You know, it's a bit of a, I don't know what the expression is, you know, sort of brain twister, whatever the expression is, you know, or maybe it's counterintuitive because we think it's going to, because our feelings are so complex and our thinking, you know, we're complex beings, that I think we think solutions need to be very complex, but they don't. They're so simple. And when we talk about breathing, it doesn't have to be like 10 whole minutes. You know, just 6 breaths is enough for our body to reset itself. So it's very simple techniques that are best practiced when we're not stressed, because then we're able to take them into a stress situation. If we wait until we're stressed, then it's much harder. But if you practice them beforehand, you're sort of able to click into that remembered state of relaxation or breathing techniques. So it is important to practice them when you're not stressed.
Is that kind of going back to almost strengthening that automatic system of, you know, breathing?
Yeah, totally. And I guess within that, what you're talking about there is the strengthening of the neurobiology links, you know, because with this concept that our brain has a lot of plasticity, so we can strengthen all the positive links and help divert our thinking, so it more naturally goes to helpful resources, which is good.
Amazing. Yeah, so you kind of touched on it a bit, but I'm wondering, what are like good practices of breathing? Like what?
Yeah, because there's a lot of different talk about different methods of breathing.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing when we think about what sort of breathing you want to do to improve your mood is your out breath must be at least as long as the in breath. When we are stressed, we tend to take in big in breaths, or, you know, big and short out breaths. Right. So sometimes it can be almost like a sort of gulping of air, or it's very, very shallow, very fast. So when we think about when we're thinking about breath control, I think it's particularly important to focus on the out breath, because it's the out breath that's difficult or more challenging to get longer. And then we want to work with the diaphragm, which is the muscles around the foot, you know, that are activated when we breathe deeply into the foot of our lungs. And for me, one of the easiest ways for that is to sort of physically use your stomach muscles, so that when you breathe in, you're sort of pushing out into your waistband, as though you're blowing up a balloon. And then when you breathe out, you're pulling, just suck your tummy in, you know, and that helps the breath go out. Not so hard that you're like blowing out. Sorry. Not so hard like you're blowing out a candle, like not right. So much that. We want to keep our shoulders still, because we're not using our upper chest. So we're using only our stomach muscles, our diaphragm. And then there is a lot of different ways, like, you know, 5-11 or 4-7. You know, that's 4, the count of 4 breaths in, 7 out, 5 breaths in, you know, more out. But for me, the easiest thing is actually same breath, number of breath counts for breath in and the breath out, which I guess is a bit like the square breathing. And to know too that when we breathe in, there's a pause, a sort of hold. And then as we breathe out, there's a hold. So if you want to do that with me now, Serena, we can just practice it and see how it goes. So Perhaps the easiest way to start is to start with an out breath, and with that to just pull your stomach in, because then that gets the stomach moving in the right direction with the breathing. So if we go visibly and then breathe in and then breathe out. Now I'm going to now we've got the sort of rhythm, I'm going to count. So we're going to breathe in to 4. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4. We'll pause and we'll breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and have a hold. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Breathe in, pushing stomach out. Breathe out, pulling stomach in. Breathing in, following your breath, and breathing out, 2, 3, 4. And one last breath. And breathing out. How was that for you?
Yeah.
I noticed that I've become more aware of my body and like sort of my shoulders relaxing.
Totally. I think I found it actually really helpful. I was using my hands on my stomach as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, to kind of help. Because initially it was like, oh, which way am I?
Yeah, yeah,
So that was really helpful.
yeah. That's a really good tip.
But
Yeah.
no, it is really it's amazing. Yeah, and I always do find it is a noticeable difference. I wish, to be honest, that I did it before we started recording the podcast. Because I feel like definitely more, relaxed.
Yeah, it helps you step back, doesn't it? You know, yeah.
And I didn't even realize it's kind of one of those. It's like a moment of like, oh, that was really nice, and and I didn't even realize that I needed it.
No, well, likewise, same, absolutely same. You know, my shoulders get higher and higher throughout the day, and it's just like it's really good to do that sort of reset. It is like sort of pressing the reset on the computer, and you know that's like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, which is like 10 seconds per breath. So that's breathing rate of 6 breaths a minute, which is the average slow breathing rate. Now, with practice, you might find that you can breathe even slower. And if you're a flautist or someone who sings a lot, you naturally will want to have a slower breath, probably. Or if you have not so practiced, you might find that's a bit challenging. So you maybe need to make it like, 3 seconds, 3 seconds, or 4 seconds, 4 seconds. You want to, but work towards that. Find what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And you'll find very quickly you can just sort of click into that. I find it helpful to do the counting in my head. Yeah. That sort of seconds. But it can be helpful to have a clock or something, because we can like just think we're doing seconds, but go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's really a bit fast. So, use a clock, whatever tools you like. Set your reminder to breathe. I mean, we all know about taking a deep breath before we do something that's challenging. It's really helpful. So just 3 deep breaths. I think I've told you before about a time when I went on a Buddhist retreat, and the nuns said we had to take 3 deep breaths every 15 minutes when the clock chimed. And at the beginning, I just thought, what's that going to do? And honestly, it was the most relaxed I've ever been. So, I needed that external sort of discipline. In fact, everybody did it. They stopped what they were doing mid-sentence, walking, washing pots, just stopped.
Yeah.
3 deep breaths, and they carried on. It was just brilliant discipline. So yeah, I can vouch for its effectiveness, and it's and actually nobody needs to know you're doing these deep breaths. You don't physically really see someone doing it. So
yeah, that's true.
It's a technique you can take anywhere.
Well, I mean, that was actually going to be one of my questions: is how can we kind of incorporate it?
Yeah. Well, it is. It is that. It is. It is like the checking, like you were saying when we began to talk about breathing at the beginning. Suddenly, noticing your breath. So it's that ability to check ourselves, to notice when our shoulders are up, when our sort of what's our body doing, and then I was thinking too about what are the other ways that we can connect with feeling good, and what are the how do we click into that? And I think it is that sense of having that flexibility in our mind, so that if we notice that we're ruminating on a negative thought, we can actually make that switch. So the first thing is to notice it and then realize, actually, what am I doing here? Is it helpful? And it probably isn't. So in which case, either park it to the side and say, I'll tend to that later. Take some deep breaths, which allow you to step back and then connecting with our positive feelings. And there's a number of ways we can do that. We can do that by thinking about things that make us smile, people that we love, people who care for us, connecting with that, bringing forward their smiley faces, thinking of positive things we've done in the past, reaching out to help others, remembering what we do to help others. That's a really important way of helping us feel good, for helping us get good feelings, is acts of kindness to others. So there's a raft of things that we can do which really help us maintain our positivity. And like everything, the more we do these things, the more we're able to get that emotional flexibility, because we all will feel bad sometimes and feel down. It's quite normal for our feelings to go up and down. Hopefully, we don't want them to swing wildly up and wildly down. It's within sort of normal parameters. But it's having that ability to recognize that and to help ourselves, knowing what we can do to help ourselves feel better when we notice ourselves feeling a bit low and a bit stuck sometimes.
Yeah. And even, both when we notice we're feeling low, but also, as you mentioned, when you're not feeling stressed, that importance of practicing it.
Yeah. And I guess maybe that's about motivation, and maybe there's things you can do to help yourself practice. You don't need to practice for the rest of your life. You maybe just set yourself a target. I'm going to practice this over today or tomorrow, or, over a short period of time. And then to build in how you're going to do that. So it's manageable steps. People talk about SMART goals. So you think about what's realistic for you to do. When can you practice? And maybe it's every time you go to the toilet, or when you put the kettle on or something. You can think, now this is the time that I'm going to just take some breathing. Or you might want to set a reminder on your watch or something. So, think it is helpful to think through when you're going to practice these things.
Right.
And also to remind yourself about why. It's a bit like we brush our teeth. That's a routine. We do it last thing at night. We might do it first thing in the morning after we've eaten. And we do that because we know it's going to help our teeth, looking after our teeth. Ultimately, so we probably have less dental work, which is actually good for our wallets and our health. But also too, that thing, well, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to have more control. I'm going to be more me. I'm more in touch with me. I'm going to feel better. And that's perhaps that's enough of a motivator.
And also, I guess, to add, like, maybe that it's like we're very we're deserving of it too. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah, totally. I know you. That's so important, because we for sure would say to friends, "Oh, take time out for yourself, look after yourself." But when it comes to applying those same rules to ourselves,
yeah,
it's not so easy. So it is. You're right. It's that thing about we are deserving of that, of our own kindness to ourselves. I do think too, maybe there's something that we're more hardwired to notice when things go wrong.
Mm.
And that's why it's easier to respond in crisis.
Yeah.
Because, well, we have to, you know.
Yeah.
And it's probably a survival thing.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say, is that like an evolutionary almost trait?
Yes.
Like that's how you survive.
I think so. And I think it's the same thing that, we notice, that's why we notice sort of negative thoughts and sort of, we and dangerous situations. They're all about survival, but we can train ourselves to quickly work out whether we need to respond or not, and then to focus more on the important things, the things that give us what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Not wasting our energy on things that we can't control,
Right.
and the what ifs, and focus on what we can.
Well, I guess to kind of summarize, I think, because we talked about breathing and the self-awareness, firstly, as very key skills. And then in how we can incorporate that in a more regular basis for more to protect ourselves and develop good positive mental health. It's kind of building it into routine, is that right? And like finding ways to take time for yourself daily, to breathe, and then again to kind of reflect on what we're talking about. And once you've kind of developed it, it will become easier and easier and easier.
Yeah,
practicing these things that are intuitive and automatic and
yes.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
well,
yeah. It's such a big topic. I think you've done it.
I can't wait to I feel like in future podcasts it'd be great to unpick more skills, because I know part of the Feeling Good programs, visualization's such a key one.
Absolutely, we haven't even mentioned that. You're right.
Yeah. So
that's really interesting
topic. But it's so great to have you to speak about it, and hopefully raise some awareness around its importance.
My pleasure, and I look forward to the next one on visualization.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will say it's been fantastic that we've been receiving some questions around mental health. And just to say, for those who do have any questions on any of the topics we talk about in the podcast, to contact us, and we would be happy to answer those questions for you. So, wishing everyone a lovely rest of their day, and thanks again, Sheila.
Thank you, Serena. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.